had Dr. Carl Mack to come to Alabama on several occasions because he happened to have one of the best presentations I have heard on the history of African American people. And so this is about my third or fourth time having him. And then other presiding elder districts and other churches started having him and make presentations in Alabama. And so he is a longtime friend, and I praise the Lord for him. He has magnificent memory, instruction, and also has some calendars. And I'll let him tell you all about that. But I want him to come forth. His bio is all in this book. Get your QR code and look at it and let him tell you what he's going to do. Thank you. He is a native right there. But you go ahead and tell them. I think they got that over there for you. Washington Conference is kind of particular with the bishop. They got meal table, and let me tell you this real quick. Oh, you go ahead. I don't want to talk too much, but I have 1,000 stories. When I was invited to my home church at Prodigal Indian Church, Swanson, South Carolina, to do a 5-night revival. And you know that was some years ago. And so and we always had this annual revival. In fact, I got saved at the revival because I was told that that was the only time you really could get saved because you had to go to the monasteries. And so it was always the second week in August. And so the first year, when I turned 12, Mama said, your sins are upon you up until you get 12. But when you get 12, you got to make a confession to Jesus Christ. And you got to do it at the annual revival. So the first year, I didn't get nothing because you had to show evidence you had. So the next year, 13, I went back to the mothers bench. That Monday night, I didn't get nothing. And the preacher, evangelist from Washington, D.C., told me that you got to fast. And he said, and we sat there looking, fast? We didn't know what that meant. He said, now, let me tell you, I can tell y'all don't understand what I'm meaning. He said, you got to turn down your plate. He said, don't eat nothing tomorrow and come back tonight, that night, and seek the Lord and he'll get you saved, or he'll save you. I stayed home. I got to work in the beef field, and I can't go out in the beef field and not eat. So that Wednesday night, I did not eat and I did not go to the beef field, but I went and praised the Lord. I got saved that night. Now you had to show evidence. You just couldn't go down there and say, Lord, save me. They believe you got to pray. And I prayed and I got the Holy Ghost. Praise the Lord. So when I went back for the revival, I said, now Lord, they used to fix the pastor, the preacher, a meal every night. Now I wonder, are they going to treat me like that? And sure enough, somebody got up and announced before the revival was over, so-and-so cooked dinner for the preacher tonight. I said, praise the Lord. So I say all of that to say, Lord, what are they going to treat me like the other bishops in the 2nd district? So when I walked in and saw the table, I said, oh, praise the Lord. Dr. Carl Mack, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you so much for giving praise and glory to God this morning. Good morning, family. Good morning. So as the Bishop said, Carl Mack, and I'm not from Maryland, I'm from the great state of Mississippi. Went to Lanier High School, all-black high school, graduated from Mississippi State with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. Ultimately went to Seattle, worked as an engineer for 18 years. From there, I moved to this area because I became the fourth executive director of the largest repository of black engineers in the world, the National Society of Black Engineers. And our mission at that organization is to increase the number of culturally responsible black engineers who excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. That is our mission. And I was so honored that God placed me in a position. When I got there, we had maybe 12,000 members, and 4 years later, I was knocking on the door of 36,000. So it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. But let me take you back to when I graduated from Mississippi State, right? So I graduated from Mississippi State with the Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. And to the world, I am a formally educated man. But I'm going to tell you something, what I think of a holistic education is. A holistic education has 4 components. There's a reading and writing component and training that Mississippi State and other schools give to you, right? There is a financial component. You need to know how to manage money. There's a spiritual component. You need to believe in something that's bigger than yourself. And then there's a cultural component, of which many of us are missing. How in the world can you call yourself educated if you don't know who you are as black folks? Or who we are as black folks? I like this, family, I'm feeling this, but you know what? I made a grave error. I started into all this nonsense without going through proper protocol. So let me back this thing up for a minute. Please forgive me. So, Bishop, I want to tell you, I want to say this to you, Bishop, in front of God and everybody. Obviously, him being the bishop, I understand the responsibilities and the roles and all of that that's on him. I've understood, being close to him, that he's gone through some personal trials and tribulations. I also know him to go through some good times. But regardless of when I call the bishop, he always answers the call. I can't say that about many people who consider themselves, you know what I'm saying, bougie. But the bishop, every time I call him, he's always there. And I said, and I will admit to you, being a Sunday school dropout, I asked for spiritual guidance to help me understand this. And the Spirit took me to Mark the 10th chapter, 42 through 45th, when the disciples was talking to Jesus about leadership. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a minute. And they was asking Jesus about leadership, and Jesus described to them a new kind of leadership. He said, he who is greatest among you shall be your servant, and he who is servant of all shall be chiefest of all. So it ain't about the recognition, the position. And that's what I love about you, Bishop. You simply embody servant leadership. The most beautiful aspect of humanity is what you represent. That's all I think. And then Sister Nail, I've probably done 300, 400, 500 of these presentations. You have to be one of the most godly people I've ever worked with. You're so kind, you're so accommodating, so wonderful. And so I'm going to be talking about these calendars here in a minute, but I want to present these 2 to you because you have been so absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. Okay, and then to Dr. Whitlock. I've never met Dr. Whitlock. I want to thank you so much for opening up God's beautiful home. Thank you so very, very much. Absolutely. Okay, so back to me graduating from Mississippi State, and I can't tell you 100 words about the black experience. And when I say 100, I'm saying Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and I'm 94 words short. I don't know nothing about nothing. And so I'm working in Seattle as an engineer, and I come to work one day, and there's this brother from another mother, a white guy. He's there. His name is Henry Cody, and Cody is a very beautiful brother. And Cody comes in and he tells me about this brother he just read about, Henry O. Flipper, and that Henry O. Flipper was the first black to graduate from America's first engineering school, West Point Military Academy. He did this in 1877. And ultimately, and when he was there at West Point, nobody would speak to him. So imagine being at an institution for 4 years and nobody tell you anything. Hey, brother, can you tell me excuse me, where's the, nobody talks to you. But none unless he graduated, right? Now, ultimately, he gets court-martialed. And on the day that you see up there, on February 19th, 1999, President Clinton granted a pardon to Henry O. Flipper. Now, there's a couple of things about that story. I remember when I went to Mississippi State to study engineering, my mama pushed me up there, right? I didn't know nothing about engineering. I thought I was going to Mississippi State to learn how to drive a train. That's how little I knew about engineering, okay? And so now I'm sitting in a class called thermodynamics, and I can't even spell thermodynamics. And I got my white classmates asking the professor questions about the first and second law of enthalpy. I'm like, where did you do that at? How do you know that? don't you know somewhere inside of me there was a feeling of inferiority that sat inside of my soul. Now, had I known about Henry O. Flipper and that he went to the first engineering school that this country ever created, and when nobody talked to him, he graduated, do you think I would have been feeling inferior at Mississippi State? No, but I didn't have that. A lot of our children ain't got that. And they ain't got it because a lot of us ain't got it. Might get a little hot up in there, family, but here we go. So, the two things that came over me, as Brother Cody was telling me the story, is, first of all, I was absolutely taken by the story. Heart feel like, oh my God. But then the other feeling that came over me was, how does white man know more about my culture than I do? And I felt ashamed and embarrassed. And Henry was looking at me like I knew, and I had that kind of deer in the headlights look, you know what I'm saying? So I decided to do something about it, or better yet, God decided. Now, every day at work, I had a calendar on my desk. It was a word of the day kind of calendar where you have to increase your vocabulary. Unabridged words. So it's August 16, 1990, and I'm driving back from lunch, and God literally places in my head the images that you see on the screen right now. He literally places this in my head. So this was the first calendar. And I remember when I did all the research, and this was back in the day, family, when the hard drive on a computer was like 40K. That was the hard drive. There was no internet. You had to go to the library. You had to do this a different kind of way. You didn't have no AI helping you. It was just me, right, and God. But I remember when I did the research and I finally got this calendar put together, I went to the bank. I had no money. I had 5 credit cards, though. And I remember, sure as I'm standing here before you, I said, God, Carl, push them credit cards through there. I pushed them through. And the next thing you know, I got 10,000 of them things in my garage. And then I remember when I was doing the research, and God said to me, Carl, this is going to be big. It's going to be big. So when this article appeared in the biggest newspaper in the state of Washington, and then ultimately newspapers around the country carried it, I was like, God, is this what you was talking about? Little did I know. So hang on. So this was the first calendar, and people loved the first calendar, but they kept telling me, they said, Carl, we don't like the fact that we got to tear off the pages. So this was the second calendar, in which you can flip it over and you can hold on to it. And this was the third version of the calendar, and now this is the fourth one. Now, I got to tell you something. When I did this fourth calendar, when I finished it, I sent it to one of my students who was a graduate of Harvard Business School, but now he's working at Google, right? And he said to me when he got the calendar, he said, Dr. Mack, Google is looking for something for every day of the year out of Black history. Because this was on the heels of the George Floyd thing, right? And white America was guilty about everything. They was throwing money at everything, anything Black. So now Google wants to have something out of Black history for every day of the year. But Google couldn't find it. Now Google is synonymous with search. If Google can't find it, what is it? It was something special that God gave me, brother. And so Google called me up. The little boy from Mississippi said, we want to enter into a licensing agreement with you. We want to put this Black history on the Google Assistant, and you can hear it every day. Family, play that clip. This is what happened. Look. Good morning, family. Turn that up. Black Heritage Day 4, the most comprehensive Black history calendar ever. And Google thinks so as well. I just entered into a licensing agreement with Google. So, when you download the Google Assistant, this is what is going to happen. Hey Google, what happened on this day in Black history?
On this day in 1983, Scott Joplin became the 6th Black person to be honored with a U.S. postal stamp. Known as the father of ragtime, a variation on classical music, his acclaim came almost 50 years after his death. His music was used in movies such as the 1973 Academy Award-winning The Sting, which featured several of his songs, including The Entertainer. In recognition of his musical contributions, Scott Joplin was awarded a special posthumous Pulitzer Prize on May 3, 1976. Adapted from Black Heritage Day 4th calendar by author, lecturer, and civil rights activist Dr. Karl Mack.
Now the thing about it is Google didn't tell anybody about this. They didn't say nothing to nobody. Go ahead, next. And so this was an article that appeared in a lot of the black newspapers. And so it was amazing that I was getting calls from all over the country like, oh my God, Dr. Mack, I downloaded the Google app. I'm asking about black history. I'm learning. My children are learning. We're sitting at the breakfast table, at the dinner table. It was absolutely amazing. My own children were like, oh my God, Dad, look at that. We come downstairs, hey, Google what happened on this day of black history. And Google was just reading all. It was a beautiful thing. And so I'm feeling real good. You know I'm smelling myself right now. I'm straight. I got that thing going. I'm feeling good. But now let me tell you what perfection is for me in these calendars. Perfection is two things. Number one, everybody and every event in this calendar must be featured on a day significant in their life. You can't just be on any day. That's number one. And number two, I need to have an equal representation of black men to black women. And so now I done finished Black Heritage Day 4. And I hear the words of this brother on May 22nd, 1962, when Malcolm was in California. He made a very profound observation. He said, Carl, the most disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. And Carl, the most neglected person in America is the black woman. Now see that half-hearted clap you got, brothers? It's because you really don't believe that. Sisters, y'all been through hell and back. And God bless you. And so right now, I'm going to spend some time loving on you a little bit. I want to give some respect to you. I want to give some appreciation in this part of my black history. I've never done this before. This is the first, but I want to do this now. So when he said that, I'm having a conversation with Malcolm. See, that's the thing about our history. It ain't dead to me. It's dynamic. So the ancestors are always talking to me, providing me clarity about things. Always talking. So Malcolm and I had a conversation. I said, Brother Malcolm, surely with my body of work, you cannot be talking about me. And Malcolm asked me very plainly, well, Carl, in Black Heritage Day 4, did you have an equal representation of black women? I said, Malcolm. He said, Carl, as a matter of fact, you didn't have an equal number in 1, 2, or 3. I'm talking to you, Carl. I said, Malcolm. Okay, Malcolm. Okay. So this is what I did. I made a 5th edition of Black Heritage Day 5. 366 pages of nothing but black women. And so what you're looking at is 4 pages of table of contents. 366, and every one of you are on your day. So let me introduce you to some of our sisters. So this is Crystal Bird Fawcett, 1938. She became the first black woman ever elected to a state assembly right there in Pennsylvania, 1938. This is Dr. Ernest May McCarroll. Now, do you remember the Tuskegee syphilis experiment? You remember that? How did you ever learn about it? Who revealed it to the world? It was this sister. Now, first of all, they used to call her the First Lady because she was the first black doctor ever hired in Newark City Hospital. And as a part of the American Medical Association, she's doing her research and she sees the insanity of what the Center for Disease Control in the U.S. Public Health did. She saw it and she began pounding the table, pounding the table, pounding the table. And then that information went to this sister. See, Sister Dr. McCarroll now did a Senate hearing meeting about what they was doing, the Center for Disease Control. And then there was a sister named Dorothy Height who was listening. Right. So Dorothy Height was sitting on this commission. That's right, and she deserves all of that. So Dorothy Height is sitting on this commission. You got to figure she's the only sister in the room. But Dorothy Height is like, I came here to represent my people. So she pounded the table to make sure that they did a Belmont report. And it was that Belmont report that now exposed what the Center for Disease Control and what the United States Department of Health was doing. So it was those 2 women, Dr. McCarroll and Dorothy Height, that gave us insight to the Tuskegee experiment. Go ahead. And then Malcolm said that our sisters are unprotected. So inside the pages of Black Heritage Day 5, I have black women who have been killed by the police. And this is the case with this grandmama in Atlanta. When cops had a no-knock warrant knocking on her door, busting her door and kill her, then try to frame grandmama talking about she was selling cocaine. Where do you do that at? Where do you do that at? Now, on 9/11, I've been looking at all kinds of documentaries since 9/11 happened. Did you know about these two sisters? Sister Green and Sister Lyles. They were the two flight attendants on United Flight 93. And this had to be the hardest page I ever did of all the research that I did. This one was messing with me. Because I tried to put myself in baby girl's position as her husband. Because when the flight was going down and they knew something was wrong, the hijackers had it. The first thing she did, Sister Lyles did, was she called home to her husband. And when she called home, the answering machine picked up. My heart is just sagging. But then she decided, they said to her, we got 5 minutes before we go in and we're going through this door. So she said, I got to try one more time. I got to try to call Carl. And she tried to call me. And when she calls me, I pick up the phone. I'm watching the news. I done seen the planes flying into the Pentagon. I done seen all these things happening. And she says to me, baby, they done hijacked our plane. My whole soul left my body. I'm sitting there, I'm trying to type the story, and I can't. Oh. So on 9/11, I want us to remember Sister Green and Sister Lyles, because they were sheroes and sacrificed their life of making sure that that plane crashed in Pennsylvania and then killed what it could have done. So inside the calendar, there's Black women organizations, the Deltas, the AKAs, Sigma Gamma Rho's, all of you are represented. There's a page on the day that Mack started, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, the National Council of Black Women. I have a page for all of you because you've been very prominent in our life, right? There's pages like this about Elizabeth Freeman. Beautiful thing about Elizabeth Freeman is we all know that slavery has been a part of our experience in this country. Elizabeth Freeman was the first Black to sue for her freedom in America. She did that in Massachusetts. She was the first one. Now I'm going to tell you something else special about her. She's the great-grandmama of the first Black to graduate from Harvard University with a PhD, W.B. Du Bois. And then there's Callie House. There's been a lot of talk about reparations. Callie House, this sister who was born into slavery, is the first person to file a lawsuit that reached the federal level for reparations. And the lawyer that she chose was a brother from my hometown. I'm not saying he's from Mississippi. I'm saying the brother was from Hines County. That's where Jackson is. She had a Black lawyer to argue the case. It was for like $68 million, and this $68 million had been secured by the Department of Treasury, and this had happened during the Civil War, and they didn't know what to do with it. So this $68 million sat in the U.S. Treasury for 50 years, and this sister came up with a plan to secure that money and dole it out. And the government said no, and instead they put her in jail. But we're going to talk about reparations today. So thank you, Callie. Right. And then I had some kind of fun days on the calendar, right? So this is Mary Wilson. When Mary was a little girl, she loved the animals. She used to sit around and talk to the animals. So when I wrote this, I started calling her in my research Mrs. Doolittle. Well, who is Mrs. Doolittle? It ends up that Mrs. Doolittle became the first Black person ever to be a zookeeper in America. And she's right there from Baltimore, 1961. Mrs. Doolittle. Go ahead. Now, you would think that you know a lot of things about Diana Ross and the Supremes. First of all, Diana Ross and the Supremes, there is no other all-girls group that had more #1 singles than Diana Ross and the Supremes. They had 12. Nobody's even got half of it. But here's something that was interesting to me about Diana Ross. Diana Ross is the first female artist ever to have a #1 hit as a part of a trio, part of a duet, and as a single. Now, with all of these #1 hits that Diana Ross and the Supremes had, the thing that puzzled me, and I put it at the bottom of the page, can somebody, anybody, everybody, please tell me how, in the name of what makes sense, that Diana Ross never won a Grammy Award? Why they do that? Go ahead. Now, if you take your phones out, you won't be able to do it here. But if you Google rule number 7, Miss America, you know what you're going to learn? You're going to learn that the Miss America pageant had a clause in it that said, unless you were of the pure white race, you weren't beautiful and you can't be in the Miss America pageant. Yeah, that's what they had. And so this sister, although we all know Vanessa Williams as being the first black to win Miss America, this sister was the first black to make it to the Miss America pageant. And guess what state she was representing? Iowa. Pastor, Iowa. Come on, go ahead. Iowa. And this sister here tickled me too. She really did. Sister Hillary. So Sister Hillary used to be a nurse, right? And she was about 55 years old. She decided she wanted to retire. Now, when she was a child, she used to read the book Robinson Crusoe. So she loved the fact that Crusoe went on all these adventures. So now she's retired. And she decides she wants to go on adventures of her own. Okay, Sister Hillary. What does she want to do? She wants to go to the Arctic. Sister 55, she's skiing across the Arctic. At the age of 75, Barbara Hillary became one of the oldest and the first black person ever to step foot on the North Pole. 75. Hold on. 4 years later, she decides, I want to go to the South Pole. So she took her little self right on down there to the South Pole, and she became the first black person ever to step, or in North Pole, she was the first black woman. South Pole, she was the first black woman ever to step foot on the South Pole. That's my girl. Now, next, okay, now I gotta ask y'all something, because see, when I leave here tomorrow, I'm getting on a plane and I'm going to Seattle. Now, when I go to Seattle, I'm going to make a video. Pastor, I hope you don't mind. Okay, now listen. So when I go to Seattle, I get there on Saturday. On Sunday, I'm speaking in Tacoma, Washington. I'm doing a Black History presentation. The crowd will not be anywhere as handsome as you all are. Trust me. But after I finish my presentation, they want me to present one of the hidden awards. And they want me to present my hidden award to Sophia Dannenberg. Well, who is Sophia Dannenberg? Well, she ain't nothing but the first black woman ever to climb Mount Everest. Oh, she done climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount McKinley, but Mount Everest is numero uno. So she's the first black person ever to climb Mount Everest. And they want me to present her the award. And the reason they want me to do it is because when they said that they wanted me to come up there and speak, I asked if they knew that she was in the area. They was like, oh my God, Carl, who is she? So I told them who she was, and they found her. And they gave her one of my calendars. And they said, well, you know, he's going to be speaking. She goes, oh my God, I want to meet him. I'm like, she want to meet me? No, baby girl, I want to meet you. How about that? So listen, so this is what I need from us. I'm going to start this video. And then I'm going to play this video at her event. And I just need all of us to say, congratulations, Sophia. But you can't be sitting there all prim and proper. You got to kind of stand up. I think climbing Mount Everest is worth a standing ovation. I think, hold on, not yet now, not yet. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Y'all get an Academy Award. Okay, so anyway, so this sister's the first black woman to climb Mount Everest. All right, here we go. Now, I gotta tell you about some of my daughters. And this is one of them. So when I became the executive director of the National Society of Black Engineers, I'm at this conference and I'm speaking to 5,000 to 6,000 students. And sitting in the audience is Denisha McPherson. I don't know her at the time. But I give a kind of rousing kind of speech, and she comes up to me and she starts calling me Pops at that point. Okay. She goes, Pops, I was about to drop out, but when I heard your inspirational words, I'm not going to drop out. Amen. So then she tells me the rest of the story. She says that when she was in high school, she went to her math teacher and said to her math teacher, after coming from a NSBE conference, oh my God, back it up one, just back it up one. Okay. She says to her math teacher, I want to go to engineering school and I want to become an engineer. And the math teacher said, oh no, you ain't got what it takes. You'll never get into any engineering school and you'll never become an engineer. So when she's sitting in the audience listening to me, she's doubting, she's on the verge of dropping out. And she says it was my words that kept her into engineering. She was at RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institution, very serious institution. The great Dr. Lisa Jackson was the president there for many, many years. So phenomenal institution. So our baby girl goes ahead and she graduates. And NBC Sports hires her. So she is the first black woman engineer ever to be hired by NBC Sports. And then NBC Sports decides, we want you to work on the Olympics. We want you to work on Sochi, and then in 2016, we want you to work on Rio. Go ahead. So baby girl worked on both those Olympics, and she won herself 2 Emmy Awards. Where they do that at, family? Go ahead. But that would be a great ending to the story, so here's the rest of it. Today, if you see my baby girl, Denisha McPherson, you can't call her Denisha, you have to call her Dr. McPherson. There you go. Now, I was in Seattle and I also served as president of the NAACP. And the Seattle NAACP is the oldest branch of the NAACP west of the Mississippi. And so we're having our 90th anniversary, and at the time, President and CEO Kwesi Mfume, now Congressman, is coming there to be the keynote speaker. And we are like 3 days away from the event. It's a big event, Pastor. I mean, the church is filled. And her mama comes up to me. Now, her mama knew me because her daughter, Jasmine, became a mechanical engineer because of me. So mama just feels like she can just come to me about anything. Carl, I know the event is in 3 days, but can Janae play? Can Janae play? I ain't never heard Janae play. I don't know if the child gonna sit there and be like, I'm like, Pam, of course Janae can play. Of course she can. You know you can't say no when y'all look at us like that. And you looking all beautiful in that red dress, I never say no. Nothing. Oh, wait. So I said, yes, of course. So this little baby girl get on that piano and she plays this classical piece. And the church goes crazy, like, oh my God, that was beautiful. Bring the young sisters up there. So the moment was captured at this point, right? Well, let me tell you about this young girl today. See, this is her making her Metropolitan Opera debut as a I'll tell you something. Pastor, I got chills all over my body. You know why? I'm going to tell you why. Because 2 Sundays ago, on that 68th Grammy, our baby girl picked up her 3rd Grammy Award. You know what I'm saying? There you go. Go ahead. And that's her. So I have her featured, and she's from Tacoma. They was trying to get her to the event. And the day after the Grammys, I called her mama. I was like, oh my God, Pam. She's like, Carl, hold on a second, hold on. So she walks in the room and Janae's in the bed and she wakes up and I'm like, Janae, I need a picture of your Grammy so that I can show it to the folks at Reed Temple. She ain't send it to me like I'm supposed to. That's that whole deeper mindset. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. And now this one, she's real special. This is my baby girl. So the first time I met Erin, I was speaking at the National Society of Black Engineers. She was a computer engineering student at University of Michigan, and she was the only black female in her class. But she was president of the chapter, so she asked me to come and speak. So I came to speak, and I was impressed with this young sister, absolutely impressed. She graduates, she goes and works for Morgan Stanley on Wall Street. And when my director of membership left, I pick up the phone and I call baby girl. I'm like, Aaron, would you mind leaving Wall Street and come work for this nonprofit? She was like, oh my God, Daddy Mack, I'd be honored to work with you. It'd be such a, I'm like, okay, cool. So she comes and works for me, but she tells me, she said, but part of the deal is I'm only going to work for you for 2 years, and then I'm going to apply to business school at Harvard, Stanford, and Yale. And 2 years later, she applied to business school at Harvard, Stanford, and Yale. And baby girl gets accepted by all 3. She goes to Harvard. She graduates Harvard. And then she goes West Coast. And she works with Twitter when it's in the startup phase. Then she goes to Yahoo. Then she goes from Yahoo to Google. And when our baby girl was at Google, you know how now you can watch the NFL on Google? Our baby girl negotiated that contract. It was the largest data acquisition in the history of Google. Our baby girl negotiated that contract. And so impressed with her, Harvard did a case study on that particular deal. But now things have changed. Today you won't find my baby girl at Google. Today you're going to find my baby girl as the Executive Vice President of Product Management at Disney Entertainment and ESPN. I see you, baby girl! And I'm going to tell you something, because I'm her daddy, I seen the contract. I'm going to just say this, if she was NFL, she'd be a first-round pick the way that money was flowing. I ain't never seen no numbers like that, not for work. That's my baby girl. And so she's featured in the calendar. So what I'm saying to your family is, this little journey through the accomplishments of black women, the challenges of black women, this is why I was so in love. Of all the things that I've ever done, it was this body of work in Black Heritage Day 5, celebrating you all as black women. And you know my mama's in the calendar. She's on my birthday. You know she's in there. But it's absolutely, I love it. I love it. It's a lot of fun. Okay, listen. So let's get into it. So here's what I want to talk to you about. These 4 things. I want to talk to you about this salt that's going on in our history. I think most of us know about it. I want to talk to you about the history of Black History Month. How did February become Black History Month? And this is a very special February. I want to talk to you about the 250th anniversary of America as a nation, and how do we feel about patriotism, or do we feel patriotic? I want you to kind of keep that in mind. And then I want to talk to you about reparations. And because the mayor of Maryland is coming, he's the only black mayor, and he vetoed reparations. I'm in my feelings sometimes. Oh, governor. Did I say the mayor? Sometimes I get caught up, fam. My bad. The governor. So we're going to talk about reparations. I'm going to give you 3 arguments for reparations. You can tell what you feel about it. Okay, so let's get with this assault on black history. The interesting thing is I went back, and it's like 20-something odd states. Go ahead, family. It's like 20-some odd states that's got this assault on it, right? And of course, all the Confederate states are involved in doing something to whitewash black history. But the thing that amazed me is that in North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, Montana, how many black folks up there that y'all got to go messing with black history? What's wrong with them folks? That's just how nasty they are about our history. So there's these assaults going on. Here's what's going on in Florida. Go ahead. Going over there to Arkansas with Hubspeed. They doing what they doing. South Carolina doing what they doing. Go ahead. Ruby Bridges. Something about Ruby Bridges hurts your feelings. Come on, family. Now take a look at this. Look. If there's any place that you can house history, it's in a museum. But now they want to go in there with the eraser ain't big enough, so they put the pen away and said, let's just take a bucket of white paint and go in there and handle that business. This is what they're doing. This is the assault that's taking place. Go ahead, family. And then for those of you from the city of brotherly love, I didn't forget what they was doing down there. Went down there to George Washington House trying to clean up George Washington. Your eraser ain't big enough, America. You done done what you done done. You done done what you done done. And some of us as curiosity are going to remind you of what you've done. Go ahead. But I'm going to say this. Let me say, go ahead, man. Okay, I want to take you back to Florida for a minute. Because this nonsense of what he did, go ahead, fam. Now, back that up for a minute. Did you get the implications of the headline? Somehow, some way, black faces. So they put this guy, Dr. Allen, they put this Sister Rice there to say that these standards are rigorous. These are incredible standards. And then they said that when you look at this, you have to understand that black folks benefited from slavery, so they gave us some of these black folks. Who were the black folks that they gave us? Well, they gave us Lewis Latimer, they gave us James Ford, they gave us Paul Coffey, and they gave us Booker T. Washington. So let's take a look at that, because see, some of us would sit there and we wouldn't like what it said, but could we defend it? I need us to be able to understand our history, understand our culture, and defend this nonsense. And when they bring stepping and fetching to us, we can show them that all folks that's got our skin and our kin, we can deal with that. But you can't deal with it if you don't know the history. So let's take a look at it. Here we go. Now here's the interesting thing about Lewis Latimer. Yeah, we know that Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, but he was the one that drafted the plans. We know that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, but his light bulb used to burn out all the time. It was Latimer that came up with that filament that made it burn continuously. Okay, but the thing about Latimer was born in Massachusetts. He was born free. So how did slavery benefit him, fam? Next, James Ford. Those of you from Philadelphia, you know him. He was born free. How did slavery benefit him? Go ahead. Paul Coffey in Massachusetts, one of the richest men in the state of Massachusetts. He was born free. How did slavery benefit him? And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about these brothers a little bit later. Next, Booker T. Washington. Okay, I'll admit it. Booker T. Washington was born into slavery. However, Booker T. was 9 years old when slavery ended. So what is it that slavery taught this little 9-year-old that enabled him to go and start one of the greatest historical black colleges and universities in this country? What is it that slavery taught him about that? Go ahead, family. Okay. But of all the assaults against our history, I said arguably, because I do have one that's more dangerous than this one. The most dangerous assault against our history is this. It's this guy, Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk. Go ahead. Now you can say yeah if you want to, but let me put concrete behind that. The number of teenagers that are turning to Turning Point USA is doubling. Before he died, there was about 1,200 chapters in American high schools. Today, there's over 3,000. They got more chapters of Turning Point USA than you got high school and college chapters of the NAACP. I'm not speculating, I know this. Now, here's the problem. They ain't just grooming their children. They're grooming our children too. How many times have I looked at social media and I seen that Republican conservative challenge come to our young children? And they would say something like this. So I don't understand why y'all are part of the Republican Party. I mean, the Democratic Party. It was the Democrats that kept you enslaved. It was the Republican Party that ended slavery. It was the Republican Party that gave you citizenship with the 14th Amendment. And it was the Republican Party that gave black men the right to vote. So why are you voting Democrat? And I see that cloud coming out children's mind and they don't know how to answer. And now you have what you've seen in this last election, these so-called black Mackers. But you're going to see an increasing number of them unless we can get inside of our history and arm our children with a response that should have said to the Republican, listen, my Republican brother, before I consider joining the Republican Party, I do have a question. Is there anybody in the Republican Party today that resembles Thaddeus Stevens or Charles Sumner? I know. You're like, Carl, who is Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner? Hang on, family, because I'm going to tell you. Because I want you to remember them two white boys. I want you to remember them. Go ahead. Now, okay, let me back up one. But now, arguably, the most dangerous assault against our history is our apathy. Now, I'm all about that mirror, and I promise you, I've probably done 300, 400, 500 Black History presentations. but I can count on one hand the number of Black History presentations I have done not in the month of February. And of those on this one hand, this man owns 3 of them. He called me when it wasn't the month of February to come and talk about Black History. He owns 3 of them. I've spoken at the best corporations in this country. I've spoken at the best schools from NYU to Stanford. But if it ain't February, none of y'all want to hear from me about what I'm talking about. All of a sudden in February, you want me all over the place. You tear me to pieces. Outside of the month of February, we quiet as church mouse. And this type of apathy, we can no longer afford to do. Family, I got a question. When is Bible study? Say it again.
Every Wednesday night.
He didn't say Wednesday, he said every Wednesday. When is Black History? One day in February, Carl. You know, give you one day in February. And then I'm going to give you 20 minutes to talk about it. Pastor, you gave me some love today. Because we got some things to talk about. So, this is a very unique Black History. Come on, here we go. So, I have to talk about it. So, Pastor, I want to say this. You warmed my soul and my spirit when I looked at your website. And I saw that this book was being taught. The Miseducation of the Negro by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. And what you said that this book is important because it can do 2 things. It can cause a personal transformation and it can cause a community transformation. Did I miss anything? That's the beauty of this book. And I've read this book many times, and there's one quote in this book that just resonates in my DNA. When Dr. Woodson said, I believe somewhere in chapter 4, he said this: real education means to inspire people to live more abundantly, to begin with life as they find it, and then to make it better. But the instructions thus far given most Negroes in colleges and universities has worked to the contrary. In many cases, it simply increases the number of malcontents who offer no solutions to the problems about which they complain. Dr. Woodson said a mouthful. We can sit there and complain about the situation, but how many of us are going to get in the game? And so versus me giving you quotes, I want to give you the personal manifestation of the educated Negro. Lauren Prince, Mike, come down here with me, please. Come down. Now, these 2 brothers who are coming down here, they embody that quote I just said to you, that we complain about a problem but won't do nothing about it. So Prince and I have been knowing each other about 15 years, met on the golf course. And Prince came to me about 4 years ago and he said, Brother Mack, I need to start a nonprofit. I said, Prince, why? Because I understand nonprofits. I know how you dream about them and they never get started. I know how you try to start them and they fail real quick. I get that. So I said, Prince, why? And I said, what you gonna name it? He said, I'm gonna name my nonprofit Cold Black. And I said, but Prince, tell me why you gonna do it. Prince said, because I graduated from Delaware State with a computer science background. And I do coding. And in my profession, I don't see enough folks that look like me. So Prince is complaining to me. But Prince has said, I am going to start an academy to teach black folks. But he didn't start no academy, and he's looking for the cream of the crop. Is that me? I'm in a presentation right now. I'll call you back. So Prince didn't just look for the cream of the crop. And I promise you that some of the kids that he's dealing with, I said, Prince, what are the prerequisites of the young people that have to come to you? He said, see, Mack, I don't care what they don't know. I just need them to have some heart and they want to learn. Now listen. Now, this picture you see here, 4 years of dreaming, and the good book says faith without works is what? Dead. This man told me this 4 years ago. 4 years ago, he gave me this vision, told me this vision. And the brother standing beside him, Mike, said, I'm with you, Mike. So they went out there and they found young brothers and sisters who could not do no kind of coding. They didn't have to pay no money. He gave them all of the resources, the information, the training information, free. He went out and found laptops and gave them to them for free. This brother, these two brothers, met for 24 weeks, 3 nights a week, 2 hours a night for 24 weeks. And this is the fruit that they now bear. These are the black brothers who never understood nothing about code. And because this man decided, I'm not going to be a miseducated people, I'm going to be an educated people. Mike, Chris, I love you both. This is what it looks like. But now let me say this to you. And I promise you, this brother is grinding. And some of these kids have papers on them. Y'all know what that means? Some of his students had papers on them. I would watch Prince go down and talk with the correctional folks to allow them to use the computer when the folks wouldn't let them do it. So Prince is going to be around so that you can help. But I also know this, scripturally speaking. Prince don't want to give these young men and young sisters fish. He's teaching them. He and Mike are teaching them how to fish. So I don't know the resources that sit amongst me right now. But if you got anything to do with software development or app development, just give Prince a call and let's give these young brothers and sisters an opportunity to go and fish. So Prince, thank you. Well, don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. All right, so here's the next thing. Hang on. Okay, stop. Don't play. Don't play. So about 2 years ago, no. This was like January of 2025. Prince comes knocking again. And Prince says to me, see, Mack, they assault and they're attacking our history. And I need to do something about it. Again, he's complaining, but he decided, I'm going to do something about it. I said, well, Prince, what are you going to do about it? He said, I want to make an app. I want to make an app for every day of the year that's going to teach us something about black history. And I'm going to make it free to the community. I said, Prince, that's great. Prince come back to my house a week later. He said, see, Mack, I got the app done, but I need something. I said, what you need? He said, I need all your research. I said, so you want my research for free, to give to the community for free? He said, see, Mack, that's what I want. I zipped it up and I sent it to him. It was about 2-minute conversation. I sent it to him. Then he comes to my house again, Pastor. I said, Prince, what do you want, man? He said, I want you to listen to it. So he hit the play button and the computer was reading. I said, oh, that's awful. He said, exactly. So I need you to narrate every day. I promise you, if I went to church, I'd be saying some other kind of words. Is Reverend Rivers here? Is Reverend Rivers here? Okay, well, let me say this. I want you to feel his spirit. We have tried to go to people, it's free. And Prince, I gotta believe easily over $250,000 if we put a value on the app. Easily over that. We can't get to nobody to tell them nothing. And Prince didn't know Reverend Rivers, but somehow he gets a conversation with him. Reverend Rivers didn't know Prince. And Reverend Rivers invited us to Ward AME. He didn't know Prince, and Prince told him, I'm bringing C. Mack with me. He said, bring them both. And he allowed us to share this video that we're about to share with you about the app. And as a result, his congregation in droves downloaded the free Black History app. So if you all see Reverend Rivers, let that brother know that we are so humbly indebted to him for his love and humility and his leadership of Ward AME. And so at this point, I want you to see the video about a little bit about what the app is.
In 1926, Carter G. Woodson gave us Black History Week. Now, almost 100 years later, many of us are still stuck in the month of February. But our legacy, it doesn't just fit into 28 days. The Black Heritage Day app is here to change all of that. It brings Black history to your fingertips every single day of the year. Based on years of research by Dr. Carl Mack, our historian, our griot. Just 3 minutes a day, that's all it takes to read, learn, and listen to an oral narrative of your history.
Indeed, the Southern states went to war over the rights for each of the 11 Confederate states to own our ancestors.
To connect with your roots, to teach your children the truth they won't get in school.
In total, he is credited with 28 other inventions. But as a Black inventor, he struggled.
Learn why New Year's Day was once considered the most dreaded day of the year.
Parents were separated from their children, siblings separated, and spouses separated from one another. And today, America has the nerve to lecture us about the status of the Black family.
Understand the political journey of Black America from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party.
It marked the beginning of Blacks' departure from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. And here's why we switched.
Dive into culture and triumph like Sidney Poitier's blockbuster film success. And so much more. From heartbreak to triumph. From January 1st to December 31st. This app is more than a download. It's a movement. It's a community of Black families raising their kids on truth and on legacy. Download the Black Heritage Day app for free in the Google Play Store or on the Apple App Store. This isn't just an app. It is a daily celebration of who we are.
I need to go back and clean something up a little bit. Captain Barnes and Donna, stand up. Now, family, I'm going to tell you something. You know that Women's Black History Calendar? And it was amazing, right? The pages were amazing, right? In Black Heritage Day 4, the brother standing there is Captain Tony Barnes. He's a U.S. Naval Academy graduate. And that's his lovely wife, Donna, but we affectionately refer to her as our supervisor. So I want to thank Donna and Captain Barnes for answering my calls, regardless of what time in the morning I call, what time at night, because I'm doing all this research. And they've helped me so immensely in just encouraging me and giving us some of the creative input to the calendar. So, Supervisor Bone, thank you so much. Okay. All right. Next. Let's move past it. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Here's my question. Can anybody tell me what day slavery ended in America? What day did it end? Okay, that's all I need. That's all I need. Now I want you to think about this, family. And again, I don't mean to be insulting because believe me, I've been sitting there. But at this very moment, you better ask yourself this. In this assembly that I'm looking at, I know that I'm looking at some very accomplished people, some well-educated people. And we all know that slavery has been a vital part of our experience in this country. Yet I just asked a room full of folks to tell me what day slavery ended. And as much as we know slavery has been a part of our experience, you got to ask yourself, don't look at me and ask me, but you got to ask yourself, why don't I even know that? Why? So that brings me to this plaque. This plaque was put up in 1994. And it said Old Point Comfort, which is where Fort Monroe is. And so I was invited down to that. I was invited down to see it. Oh, by the way, I need to answer your question. What day did slavery end? Slavery ended on December 6th, 1865. That's right. And so what happened is this. We needed a proposal. People think the Emancipation Proclamation, roll that back one. Let me just show you how this works. Now, if you could look at this, see, people think that the Emancipation Proclamation ended slavery. No. The Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order. An executive order is not the law of the land. It doesn't apply to us. The only people that an executive order applies to are federal employees. Okay? So in order for an amendment to get passed, you need two things to happen. You need 2/3 of the Congress to approve it, and you need 3/4 of the states in existence to ratify it. So on January 31st, 1865, 2/3 of the Congress approved the proposal that was architected by Lincoln to get rid of slavery. They sent it out to the United States. At the time, there were 37 states in the United States because West Virginia had just become a state. So now, 3/4 of 37 is 27. So on December 6, 1865, Georgia became the 27th and needed state to ratify the proposal to abolish slavery. No, it wasn't Juneteenth. After Juneteenth, there was still 250,000 black folks still enslaved in Delaware and Kentucky. But that's another lesson for another day. Okay, so now on with this. And this was my Carter G. Woodson moment. So I want to share this with you. Next. So I'm invited to Port Comfort. And I'm standing before this historic marker. And you got to understand, there's like 180,000 historic markers across the United States. But I'm standing in front of before the Mayflower, 1619 August. I got goosebumps everywhere, and I'm reading. Then I turn around, and I say to the two generals that invited me to Fort Monroe, man, this thing is wrong. Look at my face. I said, it's wrong, Mike. They said, Dr. Mack, what's the problem with it? So I told them what the problem was, but it wasn't doing me no good to tell them. So as soon as I got back to Alexandria, I got on the phone and I called the Department of Historic Resources. I said, this is Dr. Mack. And I got a problem with the plaque that's out there at Point Comfort talking about the first blacks that came. They said, well, Dr. Mack, what's the problem? I said, it's wrong. They said, what's wrong with it? I said, at the bottom of that plaque, you said that the U.S. abolished slavery in 1863. Wrong. She was taking copious notes. I said, sister, are you taking notes? I can hear her look up. I said, but I need you to transfer this to somebody. She said, Dr. Mack, I assure you we are going to look into it. Okay. Now, this is the new plaque that's out there. And if you look at the last line, it says the U.S. abolished slavery in 1865. Now, family, I'm not saying that they changed the plaque because I called, but I am saying I called and they changed the plaque. That's all I'm saying. It's my Carter G. Woodson moment. I do love that. I'm serious. You know, because I was monitoring that plaque. I was monitoring that. Oh, they changed it. Okay, go ahead. Okay. All right, let's get inside the history of Black History Month. Why did February become Black History Month? The reason I do it is because every now and again I still hear people complaining they gave us the coldest and shortest month out of the year. I still hear it. And then on top of that, is Garvia here? Garvia? Where's my general? Now you see my general back there? Now the reason I call her, wave your hand, baby. Wave it like you just don't care. There you go. Now Garvia lives in Charles County. And I didn't know Garvia at the time, but Garvia called me up. She says, Dr. Mack, I saw you, I follow you on Facebook, and we got a problem. I said, Miss Hill, what's the problem? She said the city commissioners, black folks in Charles County want to change it from Black History Month to African American History Month. I said, oh no. She said, exactly. So the reason I call her the general is because she led us into battle. And we beat up on them. We beat up on them real good. And I'm going to tell you something. When they was trying to make the name change, do you know that they didn't even know who Carter G. Woodson was? General, am I telling the story, General? They didn't even know who Carter G. Woodson was, and they're trying to change it. They do that at. Okay, so the history of Black History Month. Now, Carter G. Woodson was born in New Canaan, Virginia. For the first 20 years of his life, he couldn't go to school because he had to stay at home and help support his family. His family had just come out of the institution of slavery. He went to Berea College in Berea, Kentucky, and then later he attends Harvard. And when he was at Harvard, he gets his PhD. It makes him the first black ever to get a PhD from Harvard, who was a direct descendant of slaves. Remember, W.B. Du Bois, his direct family were not enslaved. So Woodson is the first black who was a direct descendant of slaves to get a PhD from Harvard. So in 1815, he started a group called the Study for the Association of Negro Life and History. 1921, he started Associated Publishers. And these two groups, they had 4 goals. Promote the writing writing and research of black history, promote the publishing of quality black information, promote the collection of black history, and to promote the study of black history. So in 1926, Dr. Woodson chose the second week in February. At the time, it was called Negro History Week. They replaced it from Negro, and it was called Black History Week. And in the mid-1970s, the students at Kent State decided we're going to have a month-long, the black students at Kent State decided we're going to have a month-long celebration. And then Gerald Ford said, you know, I think we ought to just recognize February as Black History Month. And all the black folks said, oh, that's a great idea, let's do that. Okay. Now, but why did he choose the second week in February? He chose the second week in February in honor of these two men, Abraham Lincoln, who was born on February 12th, and Frederick Douglass, who was born on February 14th. But Frederick was like a lot of our ancestors. He didn't know the exact date of his birthday, but when he was a child, his mother used to call him My Little Valentine. So Frederick Douglass chose February 14th as his birthday. If it's good enough for Frederick, it's going to be good enough for us. Okay? And then this is the page on Dr. Woodson and PhD Ford. Go ahead. And as you can see, he's on February 12th. Now, let's get to this part of it. This is the interesting part for me. We're about to celebrate the 250th anniversary of America, July 4th, 2026. Patriotism. Anybody feel patriotic about the 4th of July? Do you feel patriotic? No? It's your birthday. But that's more than enough for me to feel, but there ain't no patriotism. All right. Is that kind of the sentiment? Is that, would the room vote for that kind of feeling? Okay, all right. All right, go ahead. All right. Now, go ahead. Here's the question. Did we help build America? You see how oh yeah, we helped build it. Oh, no doubt. Next question. Did we help give birth to America? Okay. What does that mean, we help give birth to America? What does that mean exactly? What does that mean? That's philosophical. I know, but I know, but what I'm saying, I want you to be more elementary with me. Okay. He's way up there, but this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this. This is the simple way. Say it.
Crispus Attucks was the first to be killed, and we fought in the Revolutionary War.
Okay, so that's what I was looking at, is that the war, the American Revolution is the war that gave birth to America. So if the question is, did we help give birth to America, then the question would be, did we fight in the American Revolution? Yes. And so, Queen said, Crispus Attucks. Now, my question to you is, can you name another? Jeopardy, can I have a lifeline? Okay. Here's a quote. It is a truism of history that people react on what they think has happened rather than what actually happened. So, we have emphatically said we helped build this country. Then I asked the question, did we help give birth to this nation? And we questioned it. But Queen has so aptly told us that the war that gave birth to America was the American Revolution. And to her point, Crispus Attucks was the first to die, the first to defy. So if this black man was the first to shed blood, even if it was only one drop of blood, is that one drop of blood enough for us? Should be. But I got something a little more special for you, A&E. I got something a little bit more special for you. Right there. Pastor. Now, in the American Revolution, our founder, I'm being a part of the AME right now. Y'all have honorarily accepted my membership. Our founder participated in the American Revolution. Now, there's several ways you can participate. There's combat and there's non-combat. But Captain Barnes, you are a military man. Logistics is important in winning a war. I don't care how how strong and how many soldiers you got. If you can't get them food, water, and shelter, you gonna lose. So in the case of Richard Allen drove a supply wagon during the American Revolution. He was a participant in the American Revolution. Is his blood enough for you? Is it? Let me give you a little bit more ARE blood. Huh? James Fortin, remember when we talked about him? I held off this piece of that. When James Fortin was 14 years old, he enlisted in the U.S. naval efforts during the American Revolution on a ship called the Royal Louis. When he was on this ship, this particular ship gets captured. And when it gets captured, there's a captain by the name of Sir John Beasley. Sir John Beasley has a little son. And he and James Fortin become very good friends. He likes the skillfulness of Fortin. And he liked the fact that Fortin could shoot marbles real good. See, anybody on the front row, you saw my thumb, maybe you know. So he could shoot marbles real good. So as a result, Beasley made Fortin a different kind of offer. Because here's what would happen when you got captured by the British. If you were white, you were eligible to be part of a prisoner exchange. If you were black, they were sending you to the British West Indies into slavery. Be you free or not free, they sending you to the British West Indies. That was your fate if you was a black revolutionary fighter. So they asked James Fortin, he said, look, my son likes you, so I want to make you a deal. How about if I take you over to England and educate you, and you and my son can be friends? And it was at that moment. This is what James Fortin said. He said, I am a prisoner for the liberties of my country and will never prove a traitor to her interests. So the captain looked at the young boy and said, oh, it's like that, is it? I tell you what. Then he sent him down over to Willabout, New York. Now, Willabout, New York is somewhere around that Brooklyn area, and they put him on a ship called the HMS Jersey. Now, HMS stands for His Majesty's Service, or Her Majesty's Ship. I'm sorry, not service, but ship. So they put him on the ship, but it was something interesting about that particular ship. They called it a hell ship. Why? Because this ship was a decommissioned ship, and they used it as a prison. Now, let us think Middle Passage. Getting into the bowels of that ship. Ain't no air circulation. Smallpox, yellow fever. They said that there were over 11,000 people that died who were confined upon the Jersey. And this is where they sent James Fortin. 14, 15-year-old boy, that's where they sent him. All I can tell you is that at the age of 16, James Fortin, in a general prisoner exchange, got set free. He's in New York, barefooted but free. And that brother walked barefooted from New York back to Philly. And when he gets to Philly, he says, this experience was one of the most formidable experiences of my life. So what happened to this little 16-year-old boy when he gets back to Philly? He starts his own sail company, making sails for ships. And James Fortin is not one of the richest black men in Philadelphia, one of the richest black men in Pennsylvania. He is one of the richest men in America. He had black and white laborers. Now, for that AME love, think we got a little church up in Philly, Mama Bethel. I know his mother, but Mama. I ain't gonna be no trouble, Pastor. If I say, okay, Pastor say I'm okay. So, Mother Bethel. James Fortin financially helped Mother Bethel all the time. He was part of that AME family. He was a black patriot. Come on. Now, me show you this. Now let me show you what they're doing. I'm taking 5 history books. One is copyrighted in 1863, one in 1990, one in 1994. I can't read them back here, but you see the history books, right? And we're going to take a commonly known fact out of black history. One that the Queen has already shared with us. The Queen has shared with us that on March 5th, 1770, the first to defy, the first to die was Crispus Attucks. So let me show you what is happening to history books. And it's been about 15 years since I looked, since 2000. So it's been 26 years since I looked at history books today. But let me show you what was happening in these history books. Now, do we all recognize this fact? That it was a black man, Crispus Attucks, and he was the first to die in defense of America. Do we all accept that as fact? Okay, let's take a look at what the history books did. Here we go. In 1863, the book said Crispus Attucks was what? Church, I'm getting a little tired. I need a little bit more energy. Crispus Attucks was what? He was the first to fall. Look at the book in 1950. It said the what civilian killed? The first civilian killed was Crispus Attucks. Here we go, family. Watch me. Stay with me. What did it say? See, all it takes is just a little bitty word. Among those who fell. Look at the book here. Here we go. Look at this, family. 1994. Okay, he could have been first. He could have been fifth. You see how they changed it? Now here's the book in 2000. Look at the book in 2000. Or they give you all of the facts. Look at that. On March 5th, 1770, true. British troops fired into a mob. True. They killed 5 people. True. The event was called the Boston Massacre. True. Now let me tell you something. When I'm looking at the book, I said, wait a minute, somebody got to finish the story. So I went to the index. Family, when your name ain't in the index, you ain't in the book. They got every name in the index. Every word is in the index. I went to the index. He's not there. They say a picture's worth what? Watch this, family. Look at the book in 1950. Now I want you to pay attention. You don't even have to read the words underneath there. You know that the central figure in this is Crispus Attucks, a black man. You can see it, right? And then look on it. See the British on this side, see the colonists on this side. They're kind of in a plaza. Notice the buildings. Now watch that picture, family. Watch it. Watch it. Watch it. Watch it. Look at that. There's the British. There's the smoke. There's a white man with his head bleed. There's a little puppy dog. Ain't no black man. We gone. They don't white smoke us out. You see how that happened? Did you see how that history book changed? I didn't write down one of them history books. And I'm telling you today, if you don't think that this is what's happening, they are now describing January 6th as a tourist kind of thing, not an insurrection. So what do you think is happening in schools, colleges, and universities with our children? Because we're so apathetic. You don't want to talk about black history until February. It's our problem. All right, now, here we go. Black patriots, because I got more black blood. We gave you James, Richard Allen. We gave you James Ford. We gave you Crispus Attucks. Now I want to give you a little bit more. Now, they said that that red in that flag is about courage and sacrifice. So, family, let's learn a little bit about our courage and sacrifice. And family, we're going to be going quick through this, okay? Let's go. Because I got to get to reparations. Go. We already through it. The first to defy, the first to die. Come on, Crispus Attucks. Come on. Now, again, that picture's worth 1,000 words. Inside that history book, you know what this picture is? This is a picture of the Battle of Bunker Hill. And if you look at the last sentence underneath this picture, it says this: Peter Salem was a hero at the Battle of Bunker Hill. Well, if he was a hero, give me a picture that makes him look like a hero like this one. Because this is when Peter Salem, a black man who was also a minute man, who was at the Battle of Bunker Hill, killed the British commander Pincarn, who foolishly leaped to the wall to claim victory. Peter Salem shot him dead. Come on, this is the page from Black Heritage Day because he was a minute man as well. Go ahead. Speaking of minute man, this is the immune hands. And I know what you're thinking, Carl, I'm not sure. I'm sure. They've been blending forever. His mama was white, his daddy was black. So he was raised by a man in the ministry. But when the American Revolution broke out, he put his studies of the ministry on hold. And he became one of the famed Minutemen. As a matter of fact, there was about 40 black Minutemen, of which he and Peter Salem and Salem Poole was one. But I'll tell you about it. So now, when the fighting was over, he returned to the ministry. And LaBune Haynes, a black patriot, a Minuteman, became the first black to lead an all-white congregation. Go. Now, Jordan Freeman, the Battle of Groton Heights. Go to Connecticut, to Fort Griswold. You go to Fort Griswold and you're going to see this plaque there. Why is that plaque there? Because this plaque is to commemorate when Jordan Freeman speared Colonel Ledyard and killed him. He was there at the Battle of Groton Heights. Go ahead. At the Battle of Brandywine. Remember those markers? I told you about them historical markers where there's one talking about Edward Hector. At the Battle of Brandywine. At the Battle of Brandywine, American forces are getting slaughtered. They saying, Edward, leave the wagon. The brother wouldn't leave his wagon. He kept turning the wagon. No, I can't leave my wagon, can't leave my horse. Soldiers are running, they dropping their guns, and Edward would stop, get off the wagon, put guns on it, and still took it to safety. They credited him for being a hero. Come on. Right here in the eastern shores of Maryland, this brother was born, James Robinson. So James Robinson was like many blacks. He was promised his freedom. So when they started talking about that whole patriotism thing, there was a lot of them that wouldn't fight. And they would instead send our ancestors to fight. And when our ancestors would fight, they would get paid money and more land. James Robinson represents that situation. And the fighting was over. They reneged on their promise and they sold him to slavery down in New Orleans. When they sold him into slavery in New Orleans and the War of 1812 broke out, Andrew Jackson comes down there. I'm looking for men to fight, and Robinson and the rest of the blacks, if you guys would fight, we'll promise you your freedom. James Robinson, like, I've been down this road before, you know, fool me once, shame on me kind of thing. So James Robinson gets involved in the War of 1812, and it is just a bloody situation for him. James Robinson gets a sword right across his head. Bam! He gets one of his fingers chopped off. I mean, the brother was having a tough time, but nonetheless, we win the War of 1812. So I promise you, I was trying to do the narration. Prince, I couldn't get through this narration to save my life. I had to call Prince. I was just going to leave my laughter because I couldn't, because I'm standing there and I'm imagining James Robinson standing there, just a bloody mess. And then Andrew Jackson. Gentlemen, I just want to say to you that that whole thing about freedom. James Robinson said, man, they lucky they took the ammunition, because if I'd have had just one more bullet, I'd have shot him right between the eyes. And that's what he wrote in his narrative on the book of James Robinson. So I'm just sitting there laughing as I can see the story, and I just so love my brother for that. But don't worry, family. He finally escaped slavery, and at the age of 87, they did some census reports and found that he was up in the Ohio area. But the beautiful thing about it is our brother lived to be 115 years old. Go ahead. Paul Coffey. Remember I told you Paul Coffey was one of those ones they said benefited from slavery, where he and his brothers, they both built ships together, and they used their ships to run the British blockades that brought supplies to America. And he was very good friends with James Ford. And this is a very good story right here. He and James Ford were very good friends. So Paul Coffey believed in this back to Africa kind of thing. So he went to James Ford and was telling Ford, look, man, we should do this back to Africa kind of thing. And he kind of had James Ford going there for a minute. And he said, James Ford said, man, it all came to a head when we met in Mother Bethel AME Church. And he said, we finally asked the congregation, should we move back to Africa? He said the wall shook in Mother Bethel with a resounding no! This is where we are, right? So that's Paul Coffey. But he did take a group of black folks back to Africa. Go ahead. Prince Whipple. Prince Whipple was part of about 18 brothers who were enslaved and promised their freedom. So when they get to New Hampshire, they write to the New Hampshire legislature saying that we, the natives of Africa, are here about proclaiming our freedom, and we want you to grant our freedom. The end and the be-all and end-all to it is only 4 of those brothers got their freedom. The other 14 died in slavery. And 233 years later, the State Assembly of New Hampshire decided that they wanted to grant the 14 brothers posthumously freedom. Now, what is wrong with y'all? Go ahead, man. I don't even want to talk about Singapore. I'm going to go to the end. Come on. You get the point, don't you? But now this is the real point. I want you to understand this. So, the British hired the Germans to support them during the American Revolution. So they called these German officers Hessians. That's what they call them, right? So this is from the diary of a Hessian officer who is fighting against the American colonists. And this is what this man said he saw. Go down to italics. He said, the Negro can take the field instead of his master. And therefore, there is no regiment to be seen in which they are not in abundance, and among them are able-bodied, brave, and strong fellows. This is what this German told you he saw when he was fighting the American Revolution against the colonists. He said, there is how many regiments to be seen? 0. He said, every regiment I see is full of Negroes. Where are we in those history books? America has us tuned to HBO, history by omission. No, fam. So trust and believe this. On the 4th of July, when old glory is waving, and I see that red in the flag, I see Richard Allen, I see him, baby, I see James Ford, I see Jordan Freeman, I see Samuel Poor, I see Peter Sager, I see, as a matter of fact, there were between 5,000 and 8,000 blacks that fought for this nation. What do you mean you don't feel patriotic? I'm not mad at you because you don't, because I know the power of history. If you've been taught your whole life that we was never in that war, oh no. And let me make this real clear. Let me make this real clear. And I'm not saying it because we black, but I am saying it because we black. We are by far the most patriotic. And I offer this as my reason. The colonists fought against one oppressor, King England. We fought against 2. And yet we never gave up this nation. Never gave up this nation. So you better believe on that 4th of July, oh baby, we're going to be doing something Yankee. I ain't gonna call it Yankee Doodle Dandy, we'll call it something else, but okay, let's go. Okay, family, let's get to reparations. How many of you think that we ought to get reparations? Okay, it's kind of lukewarm. Some folks like, nah, that ship done passed. The governor feels that way. Okay, so here we go. Let's get to reparations. Listen, Pastor, how much time I got? Maybe 10 minutes? Can you give me 10 minutes? 10 minutes? Okay, 10 minutes. I'm going to be quick. So when we think about reparations, clearly we come to this one, 40 acres and a mule, right? But do you know the history of 40 acres and a mule? So let's go to it. But now remember, we were trying to get 40 acres and a mule. Okay, here we go. Listen. On May 22nd, 1862, something interesting happened in this country. The Lincoln administration passed the 1862 Homestead Act. Now, what did the Homestead Act do? It gave away 270 million acres of land to white immigrants. I'm not saying that all of them were citizens. Some of them was just immigrants, came over. And if you filed for it, they gave you 160 acres per filer. And we looking for how many? 40. They gave 160. They did this to the tune of 270 million acres of land. And this didn't end. This got repealed. The Homestead Act stopped in 1976. But the final piece of land was given out in Alaska in 1988. That was the final piece of land. So now let's go to the history of 40 acres and a mule. Okay. What happened is Sherman rides into Savannah, Georgia. He meets with 20 black leaders. When he meets with these 20 black leaders, he said, look, do you want to live amongst these people, or do you want your own land? We're like, come on, Sherman, you know we want our own. So Sherman said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to issue Special Field Order number 15. Go ahead. Now, out there with Sherman, just so that you don't think Sherman was a renegade, was Edward M. Stanton, Secretary of War. He was out there. He was in the meeting. And so Sherman said to him, here's the excerpt. I'm paraphrasing that as best I can. Said, from Charleston, South Carolina, 30 miles back from the sea, all the way down to the St. John River in Florida, this land is to be set aside for the exclusive settlement of blacks. No white man is allowed upon this land unless it's by military authority. Other than that, you leave the affairs of the Negroes to the Negroes. Each family is to receive 40 acres of tillable land. Okay? Now, what happened to this Special Field Order? Here we go. So, that's the land. I want you to take a look at the map. Charleston, all the way down. That's oceanfront property, baby boys. That's oceanfront property. Come on, so here's what happened. Here we go. So Special Field Order number 15 went up to the Congress as Senate Bill number 60. It was ushered in by Lyman Turnbull. Remember I told you about Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner? The reason I want you to like them, brothers, is because they were the congressmen who got it through the House. Thaddeus Stevens from Pennsylvania gets Senate Bill number 60 through the House. Charles Sumner from Massachusetts gets it through the Senate. So if a bill passes both houses, the only thing that's needed, go back to Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill and I'm capital. That's the only thing it needs is the president's signature. But then something happened on April 14, 1865. Lincoln was hanging out in Forest Theater in Washington, D.C. John Wilkes Booth walked up, shot him. And when he shot him, Lincoln was in his second term. We need to remember that because in his first term, his president was a swarthy, complected man, as they described him, by the name of Hannibal Hamlin. But in his second term, his vice president was this racist. But he was a Democrat. Okay? Andrew Johnson. So the first thing that Andrew Johnson did was he went in and he vetoed Senate Bill number 60. Then he began to systematically tear up the Freedmen's Bureau. So that's what happened. Let's go. But I'm not done. Come on. Okay, reparations. Go, let it roll all the way. I want that thing to get all the way filled. Go. Now, here are examples of reparations. Okay? Germany gave the Jews a whole lot of money. The Aborigines, some of they gave the Aborigines land. I know, crazy. Okay, but listen, here's the story. 250 plus years of chattel slavery. 250 plus years of chattel slavery. Millions of us have died. Why can't we get reparations? Okay, so listen. I was at the University of Washington some 30 years ago. There was this attorney named David Horowitz with his 10 reasons why black folks shouldn't get reparations. And I'm just going to tell you one of them, which on its face makes sense to Turning Point USA, and when they tell it to some of y'all, because it don't make no sense to me. So he said, listen, and we're in a theater-style room, and the audience is just full of folks. And I got invited there by the Black Student Union of University of Washington because they had heard me lecture before. Like, I went, Dr. Mack, Carl, please, Mr. Mack, can you come? I said, okay. So I come in there and it's just a sea of foam. So I'm sitting down. And David Horowitz, they take questions from everybody. The young Republicans, they was taking questions, send me questions down there. Send them down here, and then they give Horowitz a question. But I knew they weren't going to ask my question. So Horowitz was going on, but Horowitz made this statement. He said, listen, slavery ended 150 years ago. Everybody who was enslavers, they're dead. Everybody who was enslaved, they're dead. And the descendants of the enslavers, dead. And the direct descendants of those enslaved, dead. So unless you can find somebody today who was around yesterday who benefited directly from slavery, nobody should have to pay. And the audience just went crazy. The audience clapped. And I stood up. Like a big black stallion, I stood up, man! I said, David! And they wouldn't let me talk, and the black students were like, let him talk, let him talk. So they quieted down and let me talk. And when I asked David this question, he walked off the stage. Now, here's what I want to ask you. Who is the only entity in this country that can collect a tax? See, that's where history helps you to think critically. The government, family. The federal government is the only entity in this country that can collect a tax. I'm going to give you 3 arguments for reparation. I want to try to be objective, so here we go. Stay with me, I'm going to be quick. Go, fam. So, the governor rejected a bill. He said it was too expensive to study reparations. So when the governor come to see y'all, say, Governor, there was a brother sat there, he gave us like a 10-minute spiel on reparation. It didn't cost him a whole lot. As a matter of fact, tell him, whatever he want to pay, he can pay the Cold Black Academy so we can keep these kids going. All right? Just pay him a little bit. All right, here we go. Here's my argument. Here's my argument for reparation. And remember, you got to find somebody that was alive then that benefited just then. Here we go. Now, if you go to Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution, you're going to read these words. The migration or importation of such persons as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit should not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808. This is the important part. But a tax or a duty may be imposed on such importation not exceeding $10 for each person. What do you think that's talking about? Yeah, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about the slave trade. See, they were never talking about migration. They put migration in there to be ambiguous and to fool you. So here's my argument for reparations. Now, keep in mind, man, I'm so sorry, man. I know it. Okay. Listen, let's get to the argument. So, in the Constitution of the United States, arguably the most powerful document in the history of this country, God is a good God all the time. See, the Constitution can never be changed. It can only be amended. Okay? So, America's sin and the fact that they benefited directly in this slave trade, what America said in layman's terms, 1788 to 1808, for 20 years, we're going to allow the 13 states to bring in as many slaves as they want to. Bring in as many as you want to. But we will collect a tax of up to $10 for each one of them. Turn it off. Okay. Is that same government in 1788, is that same government alive today? Is the same government alive today? Did that government benefit directly from slavery? How do you know that? How do you know? Right there in the Constitution. What color is a white horse? White. It's simple, baby. She's right. In the Constitution of the United States, the most powerful document. Don't argue with me. That's the Constitution. That's what they said. In the Constitution, they collected a tax. I didn't make that up. How much did they collect? Up to $10. Let's do a little math. Remember I told you I was struggling in thermodynamics? Here we go. I might have been struggling in thermodynamics, but I was wide awake in engineering economy. Okay? Wide awake. Now here we go. Let's do the calculation. Now, here's the formula. F is equal to P times 1 plus I to the n. Next. Now the F, come on family. Oh, it's okay. I'm going to simplify it for you. F is how much money do you owe me tomorrow? P, that's how much money you owe me today. I, that's going to be an assumed interest rate that we're going to figure. And N is so important. N is how many years have you owed me this money? Okay? All right, family, here we go. Let's go. So, F is equal to P times 1 plus I to the N. We're in 2026. Let's go back to 1788 when everything got official, right? Now we got to say, how many blacks were imported to America between 1788 and 1808? Now, if you go back, I know we want to think millions, but remember, it's a truism of history that we act on what we think. I'm not saying that millions of us weren't, but this part of it can be, but one of the numbers they put out there is this one. Let's go. So just bear with me, because we can play with this. now remember now, there was blacks that was going to the Caribbean, there were blacks going to North and South America, all over the place. So we got to look at just what was coming to America now. We want to be straight, so just hang in there with me. Just hang in there with me. So the Constitution said that they collected up to $10. It said up to $10. I know it's up to $10. Well, Carl, it could have been 50 cents. Well, we're going to charge you $10 for punitive damages. You shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. So everybody gets $10. So it's 200,000 times 10. Now, that I didn't want to give them that credit card interest rate, so I just gave them the inflation rate of 2.7%, raised to the 238 power. Go ahead, family. So the amount is $1,134,176,676.72. And we want that 72 cents. Now, well, hang in there because I'm not done. There's 44.4 million black folks in America. So, if we do the math, come on, if we do the math, that's going to be about $25.55 a person. Yeah. We okay with that? Okay. Because I don't care how much it is. Give it to me. I'm with you, baby girl. Me and you right there. Rest up and sit. All right, here go the second argument. Now, in D.C., what's Emancipation Day in D.C.? April 15th or 16th? 15th? I think it's 16th, ain't it? Okay, but anyway, why do they call it Emancipation Day? Come on, family, here we go. Let's go. It's because on April 16, 1862, the federal government issued the District of Columbia Compensated Emancipation Act. What does all this mean? What this means is that the federal government paid white folks reparations for our enslaved ancestors. Okay, that's what they paid them. Now come on, here we go. This is what they did. So there was somewhere between 2,989 in the first round, and then in the next round, there was another 196. So total, come on with me, total, that was what? And they paid the enslavers $300 for each one of our enslaved ancestors. Now this is what they paid us. They said to us, hey Carl, if you want to get paid, we're going to give you $100. But if we give you $100, you got to get up out of here. You got to leave America. That's what the government said. If I take the $100, I got to leave America. Okay, let's do the math. Let's do the math. Let's do the math. Go ahead. Click, click, click. Go ahead. Click, click, click. Click, click, click. Because they want to see the final number anyway. They don't want me to go through the math. So we're going to get to $77,509,312.77. Now, you know we got to divide that between 44.4 million people. Come on. Come on, come on, come on. Sister, where you at? Do you want that $1.76? You want that $1.76? Okay, family. Here's my third and final argument for reparations. I'm going to turn to the great state, the SIP, Mississippi. Now, just like the Declaration of Independence told the whole world why they were leaving, why the United States was declaring their independence from England. As such, in the Mississippi Letter of Secession, Mississippi and all of the Confederate states told the whole world why they were leaving the Union. So they wrote their Mississippi Letter of Secession. Go ahead. I want to share that letter with you. Now, what you see in white is the actual writing. What's in yellow down below, I just made it bigger so you could see. But I got to tell you, this did kind of tickle me. This is what they said. Mississippi said this, let's make no bones about this. Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. Its labor supplies the product which constitutes by far the largest, most important portion of commerce on the earth. And these products, this is the part that I was tripping with. These products are peculiar to the climate virgin on the tropical regions, and by the imperious laws of nature, none but the black race can bear exposure to the tropical sun. Now let me tell you what Mississippi said in layman's term. Imperious laws mean God's law. Mississippi said God made the black man to come down there and deal with that sweat and heat. Now I promise you it's hot in Mississippi. Deal with that sweat and heat and humidity, come out here and pick that cotton. That's in layman's terms what they said. But that ain't what we're interested in. We want that reparation thing, so let's go. Now, if you go to the second part of the letter, look at the second entry from the bottom. It begins with these words, utter subjugation. It says, utter subjugation awaits us if we should remain in the Union. It is not a matter of choice, but of necessity. This is the important part. We must either submit to degradation and to the loss of property worth what? Family, I need you to say that number for me one more time. Now, family, I got a question for you. Who knew what $1 billion was in 1861? Who knew that? They did. And now we know it. I like this calculation coming. Here we go. Let's go. Let's not, come on. You know, they don't want to say that. They just want to get right down to the number. Now, same thing. Think about this. Where did the $4 billion come from? Did I make up the $4 billion? Did any of us make up the $4 billion? Mississippi made up that $4 billion. They made that up in 1861. Come on with that. Let's do that math. Men lie, women lie. Numbers don't lie. Okay. That's a good number. 324 billion. 476 million. 452,257 dollars, and how much is it? 81 cents. How you feel about that number? You like that? Ready to go? I am ready to go. Here we go. That was just Mississippi. Just Mississippi. How many Confederate states were there, family? 13, 26, 400. It was 11 of them. However, there were 4 border states: Maryland, Missouri, Kentucky, and Delaware. However, there was another slave state that came in, West Virginia. Because remember, when Virginia left the Union and 48 counties applied for statehood, they came in the Union as a slave state. So that means 11 plus 4 is 15, plus 1 is 16. Come on. Huh? Right there. See, we got to multiply that number by 16. And then when that number comes up, say this to me. 5 trillion 191,623,236,124 and when you do the math, that comes out to about $116,928.45 per African American. Hold up, wait a minute, I'm not done yet. Run the next slide, family. See, we have to add all this up. Article 1, I want the $25.55. I want the $1.76. I want the $116,000. I want it all. And when you total it up, I want you to send me a check for $116,955.76. In my calendar, those are my 3 cases for reparations. Go ahead, fam. Fam, I'm done with y'all. Thank you so much.
Let's give Dr. Mack another hand. Amen. You can see why I have been so enthusiastically in inviting them to come to various places. Several times in Alabama. Had them scheduled for our Founders Day celebration in Kentucky and Tennessee. And so, like I had to do with Dr. Mark Tyler, I had to contact him and said, I've been moved. Will you follow me to Washington, D.C. to the Founders Day there? And I'm so glad that he has come. Brilliant. Thank you so very much. I think we all ready for our check. Amen. But we do thank